There it is. We're recording. All right, then. I don't know how. Let's see, moving slowly from one side all the way to the other side. All right, then. Exactly, mute your microphones. So I'll do the introduction later. The only thing is, Laura, it's the poster, but actually it should be visible. Should we leave the poster up and talk over it? Or should the faces of the speakers be visible? What do you think? And because we're going to be switching slides. All right, yes, then go ahead. So, there's a delay in. You must have your phone open, something like that. All right, then, thank you. Thank you all for being here at this presentation. And as we said before, which is very important, we are all going to speak in Spanish, but we are recording. It's already being recorded. And tomorrow or the day after, if I manage to get it all done, we will share the videos translated into English, French, German, Portuguese, and Italian to achieve the widest possible reach. So, well, this gathering is not just to present a film, it's to open up a memory. The figure of Silo, for us, does not belong to the past. He belongs to the human future. And well, this film was born out of a deep need, so that new generations can understand where a perspective that speaks of reconciliation, nonviolence, and human transformation comes from. So we are going to share this project with you, which we consider to be a living project. And I want to introduce someone very special to you, the creator of this project within the team, the director. Because films are not born only from ideas. They come from sensitivities, from journeys, and from perspectives capable of translating what is human into images. Jose Kemmelmeyer is the one who has taken on this responsibility of bringing it into the language of cinema. A story that is deeply meaningful to the life of the teacher Silo. This is not a conventional biographical work. It is a film that seeks to portray the human atmosphere, the era, the tensions, the quests, and the birth of a perspective that would later impact thousands of people around the world. Jose did not come to this project by chance. He came because of affinity, understanding, and the sensitivity required to approach material that, as we all know, is not simple, not superficial, and not commercial in the traditional sense. We are talking about a film that seeks to preserve memory and pass it on to new generations. And that is why today we want you to hear from his own voice how this project was born, what stage it is in, and where we are headed. Jose, please, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Graciela. Before I begin, I truly want to thank you, Graciela, because 3 years ago, my life was quite... I have been profoundly transformed by the course of this project, which has now completely taken hold over my entire being, my body and my soul, my heart and my mind. Because throughout this work process, I understood the vital need to carry out this project. There is something very interesting in this effort not to tire, not to bore, not to be repetitive. I wouldn't like to dwell on the importance, the relevance of Saloism and all the material created by this extraordinary human being, because you already know it. So if we start delving into topics you are already familiar with, I think that it won't be as fruitful as we hope. Therefore, what I want to tell you is that taking a bit from the Siloist greeting triad of peace, force, and joy, I'm going to return to the concept of the triad in the sense of not giving answers or informing you too much, but rather focusing on questions with all the blessing that questions bring, the horizon that questions open up for us. What do we want to do? Why do we want to do it? And how are we going to do it? I think it's extremely important to consider what we want to do, and I will answer that right away and why we want to do it. Because nowadays, with everything that exists in an environment saturated with thousands and millions of things, it is truly very important to ask oneself what sense it makes to write a book, stage a play, compose a symphony, or make a movie, as in this case. And so in this question, which has to do with this trio of why we want to make this film. I'm first going to tell you what this project is about, and I'd like you to imagine yourself sitting in a movie theater seat as if you didn't know the asylum, a human being at 72 years old, lying on a bed with a slight smile, opens his eyelid wide to show us his iris, then it closes, and with a total blackout, the screen goes black. Utopias are on the horizon. I walk 10 steps and the utopia moves 10 steps away. I walk another 10 steps to reach it and it moves 10 steps further away. What are utopias for? They are for that, for walking. This is a phrase by Galeano. Immediately after this text, there is a deafening silence. And then we are taken to this gentleman's childhood at the end of the Second World War, where with an old radio and in his family environment, we already see a skinny little boy, big-headed with protruding ears, a smile like the Seven of Swords, behaving with sensitivity. Expansion, mental, spiritual, and physical expansion very different from that of a child his age. It is our intention for that to be the first thing that happens in the film. Then, at school, we again see the behavior of a child who, taking a bit of creative license, is bullied a little, and yet, once again, he shows what this human being represents. Sorry. Someone has their microphone on.
It's already muted? It's already muted. He muted your microphone, Jose.
Go ahead, Jose.
You can continue, Jose. Jose's microphone is muted. We can't hear you, Jose.
It seems like the call got cut off, and then I do not know for sure if he is still connected right now.
So then, was everything that I just said clearly heard? No? Or should I repeat it? No.
Well, the last thing, the very last thing.
Well, I was saying that at school, he once again stands out as a different child, remarkable and developed physically, mentally, and spiritually, but the film really gets to the heart of what interests us, which is his university years, the period when, in a context of military dictatorship and great oppression, the Kosomanos movement is born. And from a university raid, from one of those many arrests that happened as Siloism was taking shape, through Silo's escape to the mountains and then an initiatory journey, we enter the Chronos stage and finally arrive at the essence of all this, which is the 1969 speech and what that meant for the world, even if it still doesn't know it yet. In that sense, it seems to me that it is essential, and I mentioned this to Graciela and later to the producers, whom I will introduce shortly, that it was necessary to create a fictional work that would stop chasing after Silo's own documents in order to find a language that could reach those who don't know him, to those who today, it's incredible, but even in Mendoza itself, Silo is perhaps, or rather quite certainly, one of the most remarkable figures who deserves to be brought back into the spotlight. So, I want to share with you that my main personal motivation, and the reason I've tried to bring more people into this project, has to do with an urgent need to open up the world of outdoor siloism, because it's essential that we do so. In other words, this insular dynamic of a generation that before long will be in another realm of the universe needs this to continue, and that's where the reason comes in. Why do we want to do this project? And with that, I'll wrap up my remarks so the producers can take over. I've already told you what the film is about. Now I'm going to tell you why. I know that in the world of siloism, I fully understand that from Tito on down, everyone who follows the figure of Silo and the world of siloism is very optimistic. But in reality, we are living through a historic moment which Silo knew was going to happen, a truly grave historic moment in the sense that there is a breakdown in intergenerational connections. The elderly are in their place, adults are in another, children are in yet another, and where there is no intergenerational fabric, history is interrupted. So we need, and you, if you did it at the forefront, just as we did, for this to circulate again, for this to once again have an intergenerational fabric, for this to continue, for this to go on, for the new generations to truly embody the need for a humanism to counteract. Minorities have always saved the world, but today they are more indispensable than ever. Therefore, my motivation and that of the entire team involved today, the protagonist of the film, and many more people than you will see here today, who make up this production and direction team, and Graciela as the driving force, mentor, and associate producer who made this possible, has for us a reason of immense value, which is nothing more and nothing less than the continuity of the story, the continuity of Silo's world among young people, among those who never knew him. We are interested in the critique of those who know the product, yes, but don't think of yourselves as the last word, as the Chileans say. This product is not aimed at the world that already has Silo as its horizon. We are bringing Silo's utopia to young people. We are going to try to transcend borders. We are going to try to ensure that this remarkable man from Mendoza, an eclectic, immense being, much greater than what we can portray in a film, we have tried to capture just a part of his story, what we consider the most significant, nothing more and nothing less than Silo's message. Now I will leave you with the producers. You know that cinema is about production. This is my 5th audiovisual project, my 2nd feature film, and I hope it will also be subsidized by Inca. You know that the language of cinema is deeply and fundamentally rooted in production, but Graciela and I knew from the very beginning that this project didn't just need producers who, from a strictly material standpoint, would simply allow us to bring this entire vision to life. We truly needed producers like these two incredible individuals whom I have the pleasure of knowing, Laura Piastrellini and Gustavo Guano, who are deeply connected to the heart of the work. With their own personal intention, with a working style and with content that they have always developed, which is related to a commitment to humanity, to what I would call the realm of the sacred. So, well, I'm going to leave you now with the 3rd item. I reminded you that I was going to talk about the what, the why, and now it's the how. The producers are the ones who make the how possible, how to carry this out. Laura Piastrellini, Gustavo Guano, 2 friends, 2 colleagues, 2 teachers, 2 very important artists from Mendoza.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you to everyone for being here today. I am Laura Piastrellini, as Jose mentioned. I am an audiovisual producer, a communicator from Mendoza, and for years now, I have personally been moved by stories that have identity, those stories that are born precisely in a particular place. And I truly believe in my heart that this incredible film didn't just come to Gustavo and me by simple chance, because it actually has a great deal to do with exactly who we are as individuals, what we fundamentally stand for in our lives, and just how deeply proud we are of the beautiful places where we come from. For me personally, it was deeply moving to get to know the Asilo en la Montaña space. Even though we had passed by before, we had never actually gone inside, and just recently, in January, we were there together with Gustavo and our children as well. And, well, experiencing the silence there, the vastness of the landscape, the energy of the place, allowed us to understand that we weren't just facing a historical event, but rather an experience that still resonates today. That experience confirmed for us that this film needs to be made, and it needs to be made with respect, with depth. And in a way, as a community, we decided to make a fiction film and not a documentary, because we also believe that fiction allows us to approach that experience in a more sensitive, immersive way. So, as Jose was saying, it's not just about telling what happened, but also about conveying an inner atmosphere, the tensions, the doubts that this character had, the human dimension that he was experiencing. And fiction, precisely, gives us a tool to emotionally engage those who don't know this story, and to open a doorway through contemporary cinema to several generations, so that this doesn't remain confined to just one place or a single generation. I'm 40 years old, and in my generation, when talking about this subject, there are a lot of people who don't know about Silo. I knew about him beforehand, precisely because I like to research the places and people where I live, and because I've had the chance to meet people close to him and to work with them. But it really caught my attention, and for me it felt natural. I thought everyone knew about him. Then I started to realize that wasn't the case, and I think this film can help bring people closer and convey that message from a different perspective. So, well, our intention is not to explain or interpret a message, but rather to create a cinematic experience that invites reflection and encourages this intergenerational encounter to help weave together this social fabric that is slowly and unfortunately coming apart. So, well, what I'm going to try to share with you now very briefly is a short synopsis, a very brief overview of what the film is about. It's set both in terms of time and place, roughly between 1967 and 1969, with of course some touches from his childhood and the end, but with a strong focus on this particular period. In an Argentina marked by repression, a young man from Mendoza, deeply affected by the pain of the world, undergoes a transformative experience in the mountains that drives him to found a global movement of nonviolence and to propose a revolution beginning with human consciousness. We now invite you to watch the teaser for the film. I'm going to stop sharing and move directly on, and Gustavo will also share a link with you. Let's try to watch it live if we can. We've tried before and just managed to get it working. But if not, Gustavo will also share the link in the chat so you can watch it yourselves. I'll give it a try now and let me know if you can see it. Okay.
It's already shared in the chat.
The
Link, if anyone wants to watch it or mute their microphone, you can watch it in parallel on another screen, or you can replay it and watch it after we finish this presentation as many times as you want and share it. We are precisely looking for allies to help this process grow so you can watch it again later and share it. We are extremely grateful that you are here on a Sunday and of course for your support. There goes Laura, but the audio didn't come through. She'd go.
Fort Lauderdale, often referred to as the Venice of America due to its expansive and intricate canal system, is a vibrant city situated on the southeastern coast of Florida. Known for its stunning beaches, upscale outdoor restaurants, and the famous Las Olas Boulevard, it serves as a major hub for boating and tourism, offering a unique blend of urban sophistication and relaxed coastal living that attracts millions of visitors from around the world every year.
down below, please.
If you have come here today specifically to listen to a man from whom profound wisdom is supposed to be transmitted, then you have certainly taken the wrong path. Because true, authentic wisdom is simply not found in eloquent speeches or in the pages of dusty books. True wisdom lies deep within your consciousness, just as true love lies deep within your heart. Inner peace, unwavering strength, and everlasting joy.
Silo, could you tell us when all of this began?
When did all of this begin, you ask?
Sometimes I feel like the world comes into me and I can hardly breathe. Well, as I was saying, I'll speak now since I'm also part of the production team. I'm on the executive side of the production. Let's pause for a few seconds to let it settle because it's very intense, and at the same time, maybe some of those present are watching it in parallel, and that must have a delay. So we'll wait a few seconds before diving fully into the part I'm going to explain, which has to do with how we plan to do this in a structured way, in a process that involves many resources. The first thing I'll mention as an interesting detail is that the team is from Mendoza, obviously the same land as Jose said, where Silo developed and laid the foundations for his philosophy and his movement. And here, as you know, the province of Mendoza, and if anyone doesn't know, I'll tell you, has a particular characteristic, aside from the Andes Mountains that crown us to the west, which is that it's a wine-producing region, perhaps the most important in Argentina, and one of the largest cities in South America. And here we talk about wine bottled at the source, which has a unique quality that can't be compared to wine produced elsewhere. And I think the decision for the film to be based on Silo's life in Mendoza, this background, and for it to be produced with real resources, and to resonate with people who, as Laura mentioned, we sometimes got to know through research. In my case, it was my father, who was actually a follower of Mahatma Gandhi, not to say it directly, but that's how he got involved in his time. Because my generation didn't know about it either, we didn't have that experience, I received it as a legacy. And then through my experiences with stage production at the Vendimia, which is the wine festival, the festival that celebrates the harvest and is very much connected to all of this, I met Alex, one of Silo's sons, with his own unique qualities, and in some way I was able to immerse myself in another aspect. It wasn't just about reading the message, but also about getting to know specific details of his life and situations that didn't happen here. Mendoza is a rather conservative province, and these things were not appreciated or recognized to the extent of the significance that Silo's figure truly had. So telling you about how I got involved in the project, it was by invitation, and I immediately felt called to participate. Well, in some way, I received this invitation to take part in this context that Jose mentioned about young people, but it's happening to me. And as you can see, I'm not that young anymore, let's say. I have gray hair, I have a child, and so on. We are not finding resonance at the level of a straightforward response, not only because of this network of generations that in some way have skipped over each other, those connections, those bonds that sometimes used to strengthen us, but also because I find myself wanting to give advice to someone without considering their age or what path to follow in the face of so much violence, alienation, and disconnection from the human being and their essence, and sometimes I can't find an example to give. These paradigm shifts that have occurred make me feel that the Siloist movement and his figure are incredibly relevant and necessary today. So I want to say that from a personal perspective, And now I'm going to touch on something a bit tougher. Let's say in terms of production, this whole process involves a lot of resources, both human and financial, to sustain it. On top of that, there's the time involved, which, as Jose mentioned, is already a project that has been incubating or progressing in this stage for 3 years in preparation for filming. Alienation, a disconnect with a human being and their essence, and a lack of connection. Sometimes, what example can I give? These paradigm shifts that have occurred. And I think that in this regard, the siloist movement and his figure are incredibly relevant and necessary today. So I want to mention that from a personal perspective, and now I'm going to touch on something a bit tougher, let's say, which is in terms of production. This whole process involves a lot of resources. Human resources and financial resources are needed to sustain it. Apart from the time, which as Jose mentioned is already a project that has been incubating or progressing for 3 years. At this stage, for the filming, we have to assemble teams, which means bringing people together, organizing logistics, hiring crews, technical equipment, locations for shooting, insurance, logistics, payments that of course must be considered for all the resources that work on the project. So a production plan is devised so that all the efforts are not isolated, keeping in mind that viability also depends on the collective. It doesn't depend on just one person or a single source of funding. Obviously, the most important thing is your support. That's why we are grateful for your commitment, and because we understand the value of this gathering, which will multiply and reach us all. The embrace, the warmth, and the support of everyone here will be amplified. So that's what's central, the siloist community that can support us in carrying out this project and ensuring its quality, which is essential. We have made a commitment not to overlook any detail, to do it at the level of professional standards that the film industry demands. Nowadays, it has and demands from us. Even if we put in all our effort and make the process as austere and responsible as possible, it still needs a budget to cover it. This budget has a value for the pre-production and shooting stages. It's $416,000, not including at this time the cost of post-production, which we can't determine until this whole stage has progressed. But at least we already have a detailed breakdown of how much the entire shoot will cost. Laura and I have worked a lot at the intersection between community and collective spirit in artistic and audiovisual projects, using it as a meaningful tool. And for me, the meaning in this is that it can be shared by everyone who shares the same values and the power that the message holds. That's why we're convinced that we're going to achieve this, that we'll secure the funding, and that we'll be able to shoot the film with that level of excellence so that thousands of people around the world can see it. So that it won't be a film that stays just in Argentina or Mendoza, but one that can be shared in every country around the world. For that, here we're showing a spreadsheet where we've diversified the sources of funding. We're counting on receiving some public funding. But right now in Argentina, you should know there has been a significant decline in state support and public funding for cinema. Despite having that
contribution,
it is our firm belief that we will successfully acquire it because of the value that it possesses. Gustavo, someone muted you.
I touched it.
Could you please turn your microphone back on?
I'm back. Public funds. I was saying that despite how difficult it is to secure resources in Argentina, we believe that both from the National Institute of Cinema and from a program called Cash Rebate in Mendoza, we will be able to obtain part of that funding. We estimate it at about 19 to 20%. On the other hand, there are co-production funds or funds from other countries that can contribute in the same way as the annual calls for proposals, that are carried out for projects of this type with the same percentage. Here we have listed the international siloist community at 39%. We thought about this with Jose. The expectation is still to have 50% concrete support, as in talking about the self-management of the community itself. We have divided it into 39% from direct contributions, from people committed to the cause, all those who are showing solidarity, joining as allies who see the same potential and are inspired by this passion so that we can make it happen. But in addition, there is 11% from both private investors and others in advertising, which we understand will be generated, or it will be produced through contacts who may or may not be from the soloist world. But yes, they have surely been facilitated by this collaborative work network, right? And they are going to complete the financing for this project. We intend to shoot the film this year, starting in October. We know it's a huge challenge and that it will depend greatly on this outcome, on being able to secure concrete progress in resources. The rest of the work process, it's moving forward. We have a finished script. We have a shooting plan that's taking shape. We have a selection of actors, Jose. He will surely explain and tell us that he has found a real workhorse that we've discovered, an actor in whom we see and feel a strong resonance and whose acting quality and interpretation really represent the figure of Silo for us. Well, there's still a lot to resolve, obviously. So the intention is to rely on the essential contributions of everyone here and those who will join us. Everyone adding their own grain of sand. We understand that the idea is to reach the 60 centers and spaces for reflection that exist. Silos, so that from those places we can add a force that gives it the final push. For this process, which, as I was telling you, is already at a stage of being at the starting gate for filming. So to speak, in a way, the production progress is very far along. And well, as you can see, it's exciting to see the teaser, which shows a little bit of what's being envisioned, and the teaser already communicates something to you. It makes you think, and I think that's the point, not to make a film that's just entertainment, but one that provokes reflection, that brings about this idea the teacher had, that personal change is necessary in order to transform society. And I'll wrap up because I'm sure my colleagues want to add something, since these sources are going to be combined. And as he also said, using phrases we've read, we know that the teacher used them to motivate even more than other resources. What really matters is the strength of the group, and that's what we want to achieve as well. He said, in other words, that great works could be accomplished
by the
powerful or by a group of organized people. And well, our idea is to make that collective strength manifest, that strength of the group, and we share it beyond Silo's message. I also want to mention, along with Laura, that we have been invited to this process, but it's ideological. It's something we have incorporated into our personal development as well.
Thank you very much, Gustavo. Well, Jose, I think you have something else to add.
I don't know if I can't see myself. Can you all see me?
Yes, I can see you.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for this gathering. Regardless of what each of us may be feeling or thinking, I want to thank you all very much for being here. I just want to tell you that I consider myself, I'll say this with humility, I don't know if I achieve it, but I consider myself a well-rounded artist with a lot to give. And I never like to do anything that's just about entertaining, about keeping ourselves busy with little things. Everything I do matters to me, and I think Laura, Gustavo, and of course, Graciela and all of you, we feel the same way. We don't want to just entertain ourselves, to keep ourselves occupied with trivial things. We want to make the world a better place, and for that person to help someone else become better too. I insist the needs of minorities are now indispensable. There's a topic. As Gustavo said, this project is quite advanced. It can't be delayed much longer. We need this to quickly move beyond mere discussions, so we can accurately determine if we, working together across the globe, can truly achieve this. Silo will be able to obtain the intention and the material means that will allow us to secure other sources of funding. I was just telling the guys, and they know this perfectly well, if we already have some initial capital to... Also, we've been working on this for a long time. There are actors who come to rehearse for free, hour after hour, I can assure you. If we have financial support from the World Silo, then all the other grants that are given to you, on the other hand, to complete the funding, they will come in because government grants or contributions always come when they see that you have the possibility to carry it out, that you have other funds. If not, they won't give it to you because they say, why should we give it to them if they don't have the amounts needed to complete this project? So whether it's called Inca or whatever it's called, which on the other hand in the world and especially in Argentina are going through a very complicated time. We need those funds to reach us based on the money we've already managed to collect. So filmmaking is an incredibly expensive and remarkably complex undertaking because it is so highly unionized and because there are numerous logistical hurdles we simply can't avoid. And we are absolutely sure of that fact, that we are going to be able to make a really good movie because every person who joins this project will join in the same way Silo did it with their body, mind, and heart because there is no other way to get involved. So I am really, truly happy. For me, these 3 years of life of intense work have been very, very important. I'm not playing the victim because I've done it with great pleasure. The work, but I've done it day after day since Graciela invited me. The hardest part of all was choosing what, because you take Silo's world and you'd have to make a 900 episode biopic, you know? And that wasn't favorable either for reaching those who don't know him, as Gustavo just said, people in their 40s, 30s, and not to mention those under 20. So I hope you can help us. I hope that soon, through this crowdfunding, we see whether we can raise the money we need to carry out this project. It's very important to see if you believe in us, if you believe in what we're going to do. I believe in you all a lot. I believed in Graciela a lot. I think Graciela has believed in me tremendously, and I believe a lot in the producers, in the actors. What we're creating is something very beautiful, and it hasn't come about overnight. And we believe we can make a very interesting and constructive contribution to what you all have dedicated much of your lives to for so long, which is living Siloism.
Well, thank you, Jose. So here you see it says, how can I collaborate with the project? There are 50 people in this chat. Of course, it's obvious that we need many more people, but if each of us involves others, in the project, shows them the teaser, shares the experience, what you've lived here, this can multiply. That's the idea. How much to contribute? Well, each person will decide. I was telling the guys earlier when we did the test that, well, to build the parks, the teacher would tell us the fee is $1,000, but I can't put in $1,000. But I can find 10 or 20 people who each put in 50. And so that's the collective work involving as many people as possible in all the parks. In order to make this project happen, so, well, Jose, whatever you want.
Also, regarding what Graciela said, I think it's really good that just as with the film, we want to open ourselves to the world, people who don't have asylum incorporated into their lives, nor universalist humanism, nor the pacifist movement, nor everything that the dimension of encountering oneself and others means. Without dogmatism, without religiosity, because that also goes against our ability to have a widely disseminated project. That's why we've humanized it as much as possible and demystified the figure of Silo. It's important that people who are not from the Siloist world also get involved and contribute. We can perfectly well tell our relatives, say, hey, we're working on this, give us a hand, and maybe from our own family. Contributions can also come from our friends. I believe that the word of mouth phenomenon, the phenomenon of looking each other in the eyes and saying things as they are, I think today that has more power than Facebook or Instagram. I mean, it seems to me that we have to resort to face-to-face contact to ask for help, but we don't have 10 years to make this happen. We have a limited amount of time because the people involved in film work have to leave everything else behind to be part of this. So, well, hopefully the cascade effect can happen starting from this first meeting where there have been 50 people. We were preparing a Zoom for 100,000, but we knew it could be just 10, and that would have been perfectly fine too. Please, please help us make sure this doesn't end here because we're going to carry this forward purely out of passion. I no longer care whether the Siloists or the Siloists don't support us. We're going to move this forward no matter what. But it's hard for us to imagine being able to finance it without you. That's why we've held this meeting, and we can repeat it again, maybe in some time, and maybe in the next Zoom there will be 4 or 5 times as many people. Yes, with one
more person, I think with just one more person, Jose, I think we're taking that path toward the utopia you talked about at the beginning. Like that, I don't know if it's double or triple. And something we still have pending is that the film has a high cost overall, also because it's a period film where there will be a lot of work put into recreating scenes, landscapes, and images that nowadays have been completely altered and modified, so to speak. So that makes things a bit more complicated, just so you know. And there's also another issue, which is the idea that if we were to hypothetically achieve a surplus in production costs, obviously we think that goes against the current logic of the film industry. Generally, you never actually reach the budget goal you set for yourself. The path is the other way around, but if it were to happen, thanks to the strength and joy that accompanies us in this process, that hypothesis, the surplus, part of that surplus will be specifically allocated to supporting the work carried out by the
Punta de Vacas Park.
That's Graciela's commitment. She stated it from the beginning that her objective was also that to find that park that has so much significance, as will the speech, which is one of the scenes that will be recreated in this film and which we believe has a symbolic power. Impressive, isn't it?
Excellent. All right, at this time, please feel free to raise your hand and ask any questions you might have for our director and the producers.